Here is a video from the United States that ticks the sort of woke corporate boxes that are all the rage in Australia these days.
My name is Beatrice and I am the CEO and co-founder of Sumo Wealth. I was born in Tijuana, Mexico. I am a very proud border girl who had the privilege to grow up with the best of both worlds. I went to school in San Diego. I went to UCSD. I have a lot of scars from my days going across the border. Many times they would point blank ask me, do you or your family sell drugs? It was just, a classic product of bias, right? And the pandemic hit. And, looking at the stats that our community was the one that was the hardest hit, not just with deaths, but also economic hardship. I decided I want to be able to help them build generational wealth. So Sumo Wealth definitely is something fully out of my comfort zone. We want to help close the Latino wealth gap in our country, which currently stands at 20 cents to $1.
Not much emphasis on profits there, just helping Latinx women emerge from the racism of white America and in turn help close the wealth gap for other Latinxes, whatever they are. You can imagine the public relations department of any major Australian corporation looking at this company's videos and thinking, oh yeah, we need to do something like that too. Oh, but did I say which company this video was made by?
I love how SVB thinks about it, not as charity, not as D&I work, but as a good business practice to be able to fund this next generation of thriving entrepreneurs.
Yep, that's right, SVB, otherwise known as Silicon Valley Bank, which was so committed to advancing businesses owned by minority groups that it forgot to keep an eye on the government bonds it was holding, which suddenly lost value thanks to the US government issuing newer, higher-paying bonds. When there was a run on the bank, SVB had to sell what bonds it could at a loss. Pretty soon, it didn't have the cash to repay its depositors and it went broke. This should have been predictable to any half-decent bank executive, given the amount of money the US government was pumping into the economy and the 7% inflation that was eating away at financial assets. SVB has been joined by another medium-sized bank, Signature. It might not be the last. US banks were sitting on almost $1 trillion Australian dollars worth of unrealised losses last year. I hope none of those banks' depositors are watching this or reading the business pages, because if they all suddenly made a dash for the nearest teller to convert their deposits back to cash, those unrealised losses will, like at SVB, also be realised. Joe Biden's speechwriter knows what that means and quickly dashed off a script for the president to read out to a nervous nation.
Today, thanks to the quick action of my administration over the past few days, Americans can have confidence that the banking system is safe. Your deposits will be there when you need them. Small businesses across the country, the deposit accounts at these banks can breathe easier knowing they'll be able to pay their workers and pay their bills.
You can talk, mate. Biden's the bloke who caused this catastrophe by pumping trillions of dollars into the economy, stoking inflation and forcing the Federal Reserve to bump up interest rates. Sound familiar? That's because it is. All the same conditions apply in Australia, except for one. Stricter regulations mean our banks are less exposed to risk, although this hasn't stopped the share price of some medium-sized Australian banks taking a hit. But the bigger point here is, where's dear prudence?